What if what we call public opinion was just a manufactured narrative that makes it easier to convince people that if their views are different, then there's something wrong with that, or there's something wrong with them?
Spending is a tax. As soon as the government spends money, eventually it's a tax. Sometimes we put a direct tax on the people, sometimes we borrow the money, and sometimes we print the money.
Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth.
The Patrick Riggins Show. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
There we go. Welcome to another hour of Logic and Reason here on the Patrick Riggins Show, the cornerstone show of the Lighthouse Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. Our ally in this endeavor is the radio station to which you're currently tuned as News Talk 98.7 WOKI. And I'm here each week to enlighten your mind and motivate you to action, to do something, make even a small effort towards helping roll back this Leviathan known as the federal government, a monster that has quite literally broken out of its cage and is running amok in this country. Well, really around the world. It is up to us to put him back in his corral. If we won't do it, then no one else can. We have the power of the vote. We just have to marshal our forces and use it. Starting off the show this week, I wanted to hit on one of the things I talked about last week, which was gay marriage. This week, I have some quick audio from Representative Louis Gohmert speaking in the House about his thoughts on the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding gay marriage. And here's a little bit of what he had to say. Hey, we're working on that audio. It's the storm doing it. Anyway, we have another producer filling in today. But look, I'll tell you what he said. Republican Gohmert was speaking about polygamy, and what he was saying was he was taking this argument of the Supreme Court ruling regarding gay marriage and saying, well, what's going to happen as far as polygamy, and bigamy, we can't outlaw that now that the Supreme Court has ruled as it is. Now, he's on the right track, but what he's doing, he's drawing the wrong conclusions on that. My thoughts are, why would you want to get married and ruin an absolutely fantastic friendship? But really, what he's saying is he believes polygamy and bigamy are wrong. And that's what he said in the statement, and that's fine. But he has no right to impose his beliefs on another adult. That's where I think a lot of people are missing this point. I don't have to agree with what you're doing, but that doesn't mean I have the justification to prohibit it if it isn't infringing on the rights of another. Now, the people arguing these points about polygamy and bigamy, and Representative Gohmert, along with others, have tried to make it, what's next? Are we going to allow, a 40-year-old man to marry a 9-year-old girl? That's an actual scenario I've heard postulated, by the way. Of course, they are completely sidestepping the obvious question, is a 9-year-old an adult? Well, not in our society. We have age of consent laws to protect children. But when they become 18, they don't need any more guidance. We assume they're adults and can make decisions for themselves. Now, if some guy's crazy enough to marry multiple wives and they're all adults and able to make their own decisions, well, who are we to tell them they can't do that? I mean, think about this. What is the difference between someone having 5 wives or just living with 5 women? Sure, their neighbors will still talk about them either way, but we say 6 people living together is okay. But 6 people living together with pieces of paper stating they're married, now that's all of a sudden wrong. As I said on this show last week, the government shouldn't be telling citizens who they can and can't marry. It isn't any of its business. The government has been overreaching and becoming more and more of a pain in our lives. And what I want to ask you is, when are we going to tell it to back off? We have representatives in Washington who want the government regulating their pet peeves, but turn right around and state the government should stay out of our business and other parts of our lives, whatever suits their agenda. The only problem is none of these jokers, or so few of them I can count them on one hand, they don't want to get government out of our lives unless it agrees with their principles. To heck with yours. It doesn't matter what you think. Only what they think is best for you. So, are we ready for another clip? No, can't get that clip up. Well, Senator Gohmert also said he doesn't think it's healthy overall for society to allow people to have polygamy in a society and bigamy. Therefore, he doesn't think you should be allowed to do it. Now, he doesn't have any evidence to support that. If he does, he hasn't come forward with it, and it really doesn't matter anyway. There is plenty of evidence that, well, drinking alcohol is bad for your health. Too much of it anyway. And eating too much, well, that's not really any better. But we don't outlaw it. In some places we're trying, but for now we aren't at a federal level and most levels of government. I find it hard to believe that whether you have one spouse or 6 or 8 or 10, that freedom and liberty is going to suffer. That's what our society is supposedly based on, not whether you have one wife or 4. We aren't a theocracy making societal decisions based on someone's religious teaching or upbringing. In fact, we are repulsed by the fact that other countries tie their laws so closely and rigidly to their religions that their citizens and other people in that country, they're unfairly punished for doing things that are basically personal lifestyle choices. We have a small number of people in our government who want to tell the rest of us how we should be living, even though they themselves don't live in that same way. It doesn't matter. They think you should be living that way, so that's all that's important. The maddening part of all this is when we catch them behaving as hypocrites and call them out on it, these employees of ours in government act like it's our fault in some way, that they don't owe us an explanation at all. And if we continue to demand one, they'll just outright lie to our faces and say none of it ever happened. What's amazing to me is President Morsi in Egypt, he wasn't doing a tenth of what is going on in our country right now. And they have thousands of people in the streets protesting, demanding the president be removed from office. In fact, if you just look at the news here today, it's talking about how people are dying over this. The supporters of President Morsi fighting the people who want him out of office. These people think it's important enough to get out there and do something about it. While over here in our country, we have a government that is spying on us. It's violating our constitutional rights in just about every way imaginable. Plus, our president is spending, well, he just spent over $100 million just to go for his little tour of Africa and stringing along his entourage. Our government continues to waste money at an alarming rate, and we just sit here watching television, going to baseball games, watching the fireworks as we celebrate Independence Day this last week, when it's really becoming a big farce. Our freedom and liberty are almost totally gone without barely a whimper out of the people. Why not try this? Why not start this week working to make a difference? Don't let your children or your grandchildren ask you later on why you sat by and allowed the country they inherited to go down the tubes. Why not do something about it? Why not start working on a campaign? Talk to your friends, especially the ones you disagree with, because those are the ones we need to reach. The ones that agree with you are, well, they're probably going to vote for freedom and liberty anyway. Try to bring those friends of yours who don't understand to this light of logic and reason so they can help out with our cause. All right, we're up on the first break here on the Patrick Regan Show. Coming up, we have just a lot. We'll talk a little bit about Edward Snowden and, of course, and some of the revelations that are coming to light, latest happenings there. And we got a bunch of other stuff here. I'm not going to run through the list, but trust me, it's a packed show. You don't want to miss it. Here on the Patrick Regan Show, we'll be back in a couple of minutes.